Hi folks, Tony Tanzi here with Consortium Networks. And in this installment of the Palo Alto Tech Tip videos, I'd like to talk about one of the features that's available to us on the next-gen firewall called external dynamic lists. So let's just jump right in. So what are external dynamic lists? So every firewall, based on the model, has a finite number of objects that are available for things like addresses, or even things like custom URL categories, domain lists. So every firewall has a finite number of those. Don't often see that reached, but external dynamic list provides a number of benefits to us. Number one, when we create a list, and you will see here that we can create a number of different external dynamic lists. They can be based on IP, domain, or a URL list that we create. Also in here, we tell the firewall how often to go grab that list. So an external dynamic list lives outside of the firewall. This could be on a web server, on a server out in our DMZ. It can be accessed via HTTP or HTTPS. So it's securely transmitted over to the firewall. And we tell the firewall how often to go grab that new list. So if you have a threat prevention license with Palo Alto Networks, there are a number of external dynamic lists that they provide to you. The Tor exit IP list, bulletproof IPs, high risk, and known malicious IP addresses. These are managed and updated by Palo Alto Networks. You can create your own. And one of the major benefits that I can talk about as an example was an organization that had a third party managing their firewall logs. And whenever this third party saw a malicious IP in the wild, they would notify the SOC at this organization. The SOC would then have to page the on-call firewall engineer anytime, 24/7, and that on-call firewall engineer had an hour to VPN in and go configure that IP address on either the management station or on every firewall to have that address blocked, right? So they're waking up an engineer in the middle of the night to go log in and add an IP address. When we discussed this with them, the decision that they made was they were going to use EDLs, and now the EDL is managed by the SOC. So now when that call comes in from that third party of that known malicious IP address or a new malicious IP address, the SOC owned the high risk or malicious IP list that they created. All they had to do was add that IP to the list. The firewall in the list was configured to go get that list every hour. So every hour, it would bring in the new list. Once these lists are created, in your policy, you then utilize these lists just as you would any other address object. So you'll see those when we add, say, a new policy here. What you're going to find is, let's say, under our destination address, here are the dynamic lists, right? So we can use this list to either block or allow certain traffic, right? So the benefit here also is that any of these lists, let's say they contain 500 objects. Maybe I have a new IP list that I'm creating, and that has 500 objects. To the firewall, this is one object, right? So it's a way to conserve space in the firewall, and it's a way to easily add the addresses. The other benefit of this is when this list is pulled in, no commit is needed, right? When you manually go add an IP address or a domain or a URL to a list on the firewall, you have to do the commit to push that to the firewall. With external dynamic lists, these are pulled from that external server and no commit is needed. If for some reason this fails, the firewall will just maintain the last list that it received until that communication is back again. So a very, very beneficial tool for us in conserving address space and doing some automation, and maybe even having someone else or another department, maybe the security department, manage the list without having to access the firewall. So very, very efficient, very beneficial, and very streamlined for being able to handle that. So that's about external dynamic lists. Very handy tool. Again, a number of those provided and managed by Palo Alto Networks. You can create your own based on IP, based on domain, based on URL here. And then you tell the firewall where to go to get that list and how often you want the firewall to retrieve that list. And again, that retrieval, no commit is needed, right? It's pulled into the firewall and automatically used. So that's external dynamic lists, very handy tool. Hope you find this beneficial, and I'll see you all in the next Tech Tip video. Have a great day.